Yesterday's Legislative Assembly meeting did not take place when many of the members of Parliament failed or late to arrive in chambers for the meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. Most of the members trickled down to chambers to discover the meeting was called off due to the quorum not reached. Only 8 members of Parliament were present when the Speaker of the House declared the meeting cancelled. Today, there were concerns from the public and some members of the House as to the sudden cancellation of the meeting and the process in which it was cancelled. Common Roll member Honourable Tungiasione Holo said the unprecedented move by the Speaker of the House is not right, and members of the Legislative Assembly should decide whether the meeting should continue or cancelled. Speaker of the House of Assembly Honourable Auhiwa Levy said the standing order is there to adhere the Assembly to, and it also states the Speaker of the House can call off the meeting in the time frame stipulated if the number to form a quorum is not reached. The House of Assembly, who has a full business order to discuss on government department reports, have only managed half of the agenda from the last meetings that were held, and with the latest cancellation, the order of business will likely not complete for a while. We are not able to confirm when the Speaker will officially announce a date for the next sitting of the House of Assembly. A fault at Avaseli yesterday caused a power outage along the southern side of the island, and it also affected telecommunications. The sudden outage affected the areas of Avaseli to Hakupu, but power was restored late afternoon. Manager of New Power Corporation, Speedo Hetutu, said the outage was identified and resolved. He said the power fault is from the old cable, not the new freshly laid cable. The corporation are awaiting cable joints from the boat next month before they start their work in March. The project currently underway to lay cables right around the island is due to complete near the end of the year, and they will expect to avoid some of the problems that have occurred with the old cables. U.S. Customs and Trade Divisions are in a training workshop this week to prepare for the migration and transition from the 2007 version of the harmonized systems to 2012. It is important for government's Revenue Collection Division to understand and be familiar with this internationally recognized standardized system that classifies trade products.
The harmonized coding system itself depicts the fiscal policy of the government in terms of duty, the revenue that it collects, in terms of trade negotiations. As you know, that the EPA is going now, the PICTA and the PESA and so other trade negotiation is going through. They use this document for their purpose. Even the controlling of drugs, hazardous waste, environmental issue is monitored and controlled through these documents.
The proposed change is to work in line with legislation and system that are used internationally. Customs Division says that there is not much of a change, just additions of some products of goods that were not previously included in the old system because of some new technology.
We're trying to look at the areas where there is a potential for growth in the local market. So what we do normally, we create provisions for those items and then try and give them in form of other protections or provide the provisions for it is where there is, we feel comfortable where there is a room for growth. And then we start introducing fiscal policy to try and encourage them to invest more.
This will also affect trade negotiations and agreements, and the hope is that once this is finalized, legislation for the changes can be endorsed by government and implemented by the end of this year. A Japanese film crew that has followed the food trend of remote countries arrived on the island last week to film a restaurant established in what they call a very remote area. Kayaka is that restaurant, and its co-owner, Taichi Fox, was happy to showcase his many cooking skills. Yosuke Nishimura from Sippy Production in Japan said the overall product available at Kayaka is great, and he has enjoyed his visit to our remote island. We caught up with him and the film crew at Kayaka today.
日本食レストランをやってる
We are making a program called Japanese Restaurant,
で太一さん
which is
このお店を
focusing on restaurants around the world, especially the restaurants in remote area or unique area, Japanese restaurants. And on this island, we want to film Taichi, who is running a Japanese restaurant on this island.
いやすごいやっぱり
The standard is quite high in this restaurant because so many restaurants in Japan, so it's hard to compare to everything, but this standard is quite high.
Taichi Fox, who co-owns Kayaka Restaurant, said he has invested in a restaurant very remote near the North Pole, and he is happier with what is available on the island here in Niue.
The only difference is the temperature. The place is minus 20 degrees, and here we got the 30 degrees. So the difference is about 50 degrees.
My goodness. And I mean, how do you eat? I mean, at minus 20, to a lot of people in Niue, it's very cold.
Yes, the inside the home in North Pole is very warm with a nice heating system, but outside is freezing. And outside the town, it's a town of 2,000 people. Outside of the town, they got the polar bears. Yeah, very interesting place. We share the same kind of fish at New Zealand, Niue, and Norway. So I didn't have any problem making sushi or any other kind of dishes. Yeah. Our advantage is the freshness. That's we cannot compete with any other places because they always freeze their fish. But here we can use it fresh as much as possible, as fresh as possible. So we cannot get any fresher than that. So I love that here.
What are some of the new dishes that you have on the menu?
Yes, the new chef is just amazing, just incredible. It's more than a Japanese quality. I'm very happy with it. And the new menu is it's the same menu, but the presentation is completely different with many decorations, and it's just very appetizing. I just love to have those as a customer.
Now, you're everywhere. We see you on
Yeah.
Facebook and you're in all the countries. Now, is this part of your hobby to establish some restaurants, or is it part of like a business that you're doing around the world?
Yes, I love the best thing I enjoy is sleeping in Mutalau. That's the first thing I enjoy. But apart from that, I enjoy traveling around the world, and it's just my hobby. Yeah, and another restaurant is my hobby too. But the best thing I enjoy is sleeping in Mutalau. That's for sure.
Mr. Nishimura and his crew said they would like to return to the island to swim in the clear waters of Niue, which they did not have the time to include in their 1 week on the island. They will depart the island tomorrow. To end our news bulletin for tonight, Niue's forest management plan is now in its second draft and nearly finalized following a lengthy process that began in 2011. The development of the plan was done with support from the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, with a series of consultations with NGOs, landowners, government agencies, and the general public.
We have been trying to improve the content of the management plan, and this week we are trying to finalize it. So from yesterday's consultation workshop, we did receive a lot of very encouraging and interesting comments. Basically, the people are trying to safeguard the interests of the people, and also to safeguard the welfare of the future generations. So that is basically the status of the plan at the moment. It should go through the process of endorsement, but that will be the task of the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. And hopefully it will start off with the endorsement process as early as next week.
The plan provides strategies and guidelines to manage forests that are economically and environmentally sustainable as well as socially acceptable. But in order for plans to be implemented, there is the need for government support and endorsement.
It will be very good if it goes to Cabinet as soon as possible for endorsement. But again, it has to go with the Forestry Act. Because the Forestry Act will give the legal recognition to the Forest Management Plan. The Forest Management Plan does not only cover the silvicultural prescriptions as to how much you can remove from the forest, but it gives the guidelines on other utilization of forest products, bearing in mind the multi-function and roles of the forest, which is a habitat to the other wildlife, the biodiversity for that matter. So the Forest Management Plan gives the guidelines on how to manage the forestry well, forest resources well. Yeah.
The aim is to manage resources in a sustainable manner that will be beneficial to all generations.
In most cases, when we deal with our natural resources, the current generations tend to enjoy the benefit, and the future generation, they bear the cost of the actions, of our actions. So it's basically up to us to decide on what future we want to leave behind for our grandchildren. Whether you want them to enjoy the benefits that you're also enjoying, or you just want them to bear the cost of the actions that you're doing today. So the management plan provides the guidelines on how to manage your forestry resources well.
The new forestry management plan should be completed by the end of this week. That's our news bulletin for this evening. Good night.